Aaron Ralston, Utah, 2003. In April of 2003, a young man stood alone in a narrow canyon in Utah. His arm was pinned beneath an 800-pound boulder. He had no phone, no rope to free himself, and after 5 days, only one way out. But this was not the only time climbers have faced the edge of death on the rock. Across the world, others too have been forced to make impossible choices. Aaron Ralston was an experienced solo climber. He craved isolation, the silence of desert walls. That day in the Blue John Canyon, he descended into a narrow slot crevice. Then it happened. A boulder shifted. It trapped his right hand against the canyon wall. At first, he laughed nervously, thinking he could wedge it free. But the rock didn't move. Hours passed. He shouted into the empty canyon. No one answered. By the second day, thirst gnawed at his body. He rationed water from his bottle, sipping tiny drops. Nights brought a freezing cold that cut through his thin clothes. He tried everything, rigging pulleys with his rope, chiseling at the boulder with his knife, screaming until his voice gave out. Nothing worked. The canyon swallowed his cries. On the 5th day, delirium set in. His food was gone. His water nearly finished. He recorded messages on his camera, final words to his family. Then came the decision. The only way out was to cut off his own arm. He broke the bones against the boulder. With a dull pocket knife, he began to saw through flesh and tendon. Hours later, pale and trembling, he stumbled free. Aaron rappelled down a cliff, hiked miles through the desert, and finally encountered a family who called for help. He lived, but he walked away with one arm missing, and a story that became legend. Joe Simpson and Simon Yates, Peru, 1985. Thousands of miles away in the Peruvian Andes, two young British climbers attempted the unclimbed west face of Ciula Grande. Joe Simpson and Simon Yates were ambitious, fearless, and skilled. The climb up was brutal, but successful. On the descent, disaster struck. Joe slipped and shattered his leg. On a mountain of ice and rock at 19,000 feet, an injury like this was usually a death sentence. Simon refused to leave him. He tied Joe to a rope and lowered him, section by section, down the mountain. But night fell. Snow and storm closed in. Then Joe slipped over an unseen cliff. Dangling helplessly in the void, his weight dragged Simon down. Simon tried to hold, his hands burning through the rope. He couldn't see Joe. He couldn't hear him. Minutes turned into an hour. The rope cut deep into the snow. Simon made an unthinkable choice. He cut the rope. Joe plummeted into a crevasse. Simon, broken with guilt, descended alone, certain his partner was dead. But Joe wasn't. He landed on an ice ledge deep in the crevasse. Crawling, dragging his ruined leg, he inched his way out. For 3 days, without food, he crawled and hopped down the glacier, delirious, half dead. On the 4th day, he crawled into base camp, moments before Simon planned to leave. Against all odds, Joe had survived. Yosemite, Thanksgiving 2017. Yosemite National Park has always drawn climbers to its vast granite walls. On Thanksgiving weekend in 2017, a pair of climbers ascended El Capitan, one of the hardest big walls in the world. But as night fell, temperatures dropped sharply. High winds whipped across the wall. Their progress slowed. Then an anchor failed. One climber fell, slamming into the wall. Injured and bleeding, he dangled in the darkness. His partner fought to hold on, the ropes cutting into his hands. They were alone, hundreds of meters above the valley floor. Hours dragged on. The injured climber drifted in and out of consciousness. His partner shouted for help into the void, but the storm drowned his voice. By dawn, a rescue team spotted them. With helicopters and ropes, Yosemite Search and Rescue launched one of their most dangerous operations. After more than 12 hours suspended on the wall, both climbers were brought down alive. But the scars, physical and emotional, would last a lifetime. Each of these stories reminds us of the thin line between life and death on the mountains. For Aaron Ralston, survival meant sacrificing part of his own body. For Joe Simpson, it meant crawling for days across ice with a shattered leg. For the climbers of Yosemite, it meant enduring a frozen night, waiting for help that might never come. In every case, they faced choices no one ever wants to face. And they emerged, alive, but forever changed. Because in the world of climbing, survival isn't just about strength. It's about endurance, willpower, and the terrifying decisions that echo for a lifetime.